Hello. Welcome to Broke Parents, episode 2.
We're the broke parents.
We're the broke parents. She's over there a little bit. She'll be here later.
Sorry about the floor.
Nobody's looking at the floor.
The dog has been outside, and I don't know where you're at, but where we live, it is rainy and muddy and disgusting outside, and our backyard is a mud hole.
Exactly. Alright, so yesterday in episode 1, we said that we were creating like a week's worth of meals, and we did everything except for our meatloaf and meatballs,
right,
which they were thawing. So today's episode is called We Have the Meats, and we're gonna do cool stuff with it. So in here I've already kind of got everything a little bit ready. We've got a thawed pound of ground hamburger meat.
Ground beef.
Ground beef. We have a cleaning of the sink.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
We have 1 egg, and to make the eggs go a little bit farther, we're using tomato paste. Hey TJ, how do you fix a broken tomato?
With tomato paste.
Right there.
Yikes, sorry, this is part of our series. We are very different cooks, and he likes to just
Cook.
and be messy and doesn't clean as he goes, which is absolutely unacceptable. So we are going to be cleaning up just a little bit, but also we just realized that we're not by nature preppers, so as in we don't do this a lot. What we're doing right now are food prep and freezer meals, and we are also making some bread to make our own frozen garlic bread. And we realized we don't have another big bowl, so now I have to wash
We're washing dishes.
a bowl that I used this morning to make waffles with, so we can use it for our bread mixture. Anyway.
And are you really cooking in the kitchen with your spouse if you're not standing in front of whatever it is they need at the time?
Exactly.
Alright, so I've got in here my pound of thawed hamburger, 1 egg, tomato paste to make the egg go farther. To make the meat go a little farther, we've got a cup of oatmeal. We've got a cup of
Salsa? Oh, breadcrumbs.
breadcrumbs.
We haven't actually ever made this recipe before. I don't think we've ever used oatmeal in our...
No. We've got half a cup of salsa, and I'm going to mix it all together. We don't normally use oatmeal. We normally use a secret ingredient that we use to both flavor and thicken our meatloaf.
We happen to be out of that.
We happen to be out of it, and I will, because it is a secret, and one of the members of our household
Doesn't need to know the secret.
doesn't need to know the secret. So, this is going to be what I'm going to do for the next little while, is mash up this meat. And this recipe that I'm using right here, this 1 bowl, this is going to be 2 meals, because we're turning it into both our meatloaf and the base of our meatballs. So,
and tonight we are going to be having the meatballs. We're not freezing them. We said we were going to freeze them, but we actually decided to have spaghetti and meatballs for dinner, since we have all of those ingredients after the meatballs are made on hand and ready to go.
Yep. Okay, so while editing our video yesterday, I realized that in it you discussed your aversion to ground meat, and also talked about the fact that we were using ground meat in 2 of our recipes. So,
That's true.
Do you want to talk about the difference between this ground meat and why this is okay versus...
I really don't know why it is. It's been my entire life, my whole life, since I can remember. I've hated ground meat. It's the texture. I don't like, even like, people are like substitutions for it. No, it's a texture thing. It's not the fact that it's meat. I do love meat, but it's just a texture thing. So it has to be binded, if that makes sense. So I love meatloaf. Actually, manicotti is one of my favorite meals, but the meat is bound. You know what I mean? It's all mashed together.
It has to be like almost patty form.
Right.
It has to be squished hard enough.
I don't love like hamburgers made from ground beef, but if it's smashed together enough, it's fine. Yeah. That's why I like meatballs and meatloaf, because it is solid. Sometimes it does get a little crumbly, and I just don't eat it. I push it off to the side of my plate and ignore it because it's disgusting. So growing up, we ate a lot of ground beef, right? Tacos,
Yeah.
spaghetti, God, shepherd's pie, just nasty stuff. Hamburger helper, the nastiest stuff, okay? So, since we've been together, and then TJ came along, at our house, our spaghetti, unless it's meatballs, is meatless.
Yeah.
And tacos, we have chicken tacos. We don't have ground. My mom did leave the stuff out for me, like spaghetti. She would take like sauce, leave it out for me, and so I'd have that. But we just don't, because I hate it so much. I don't cook it. So
one thing I forgot that I did mention, or that I didn't mention that I did put in here, was I seasoned it with taco seasoning as well. So I've got a bowl, a gigantic meatball, but I'm going to split that in half. Half of that is going to my actual meatballs. The other half is going to go in this tray, and I'm just going to squish it out, and like Lindsay said, I'm going to make sure that it's nice and bound and firm, and let's say 1 pound of meat there, and I'm going to be able to fill, I could do 2 meatloaves out of this because we've stretched it a bit with the oatmeal and the breadcrumbs, but we're going to actually just use that to make meatballs.
Yep. So I am gonna get some of this bread stuff going. So we really like Kroger's frozen garlic bread.
Whoops.
It's usually about $2.29 to $2.99 for a loaf. And we have all of this stuff to make our own French bread that we will then
This does not want to stay
make
up.
garlic butter. We have butter and minced garlic and garlic salt that we'll throw in together. Spread it on the bread and then wrap it in foil and freeze it to go with our dinners. So I have the yeast, sugar, and water going. It smells just like beer. Crazy. I don't usually do this. I'm not the chef and the baker in the house. He is. So
That's me.
this is something I've actually not really done. When my mom would make homemade bread, we always use a bread machine. We do have a bread machine.
Yeah.
But this French bread is not bread machine bread. We're just gonna do the dough, form it, let it rise, whatever the process, whatever the alchemy is to this, and then bake it. So right now I'm doing 2 cups of flour. Because here's the thing that I don't like about baking. You cannot just wing it. It's like, if you look at it when you're not supposed to, it's not going to work. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just crazy town. And also, it's so messy. This flour is literally getting all over my black oven, and I hate it. I already hate it. But I'm just thinking about how we're saving.
Yep.
We're saving $6. It's a gallon of gas, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I am creating meatballs. I'm just using my gloved hand to roll it out into whatever size, shape that I want. I'm just going to throw it in there because what we're going to do with these later is I will put a little olive oil in a pan on the stove, and we're just going to fry up the outside of these.
And then we do something really good.
And then I'm going to put them in the air fryer once they're a little bit crispy on the outside. And we're just going to pop them in the air fryer,
Can I use
which...
coarse salt, or does it have to be like salt in the salt shaker? There's not enough of that salt, and I don't know how to measure that. So
I would just use the regular table salt. Yeah.
which is
I don't know, that's a good question. Does using coarse salt change a bread? Probably.
I don't know. See what I mean?
Probably.
It's alchemy. Who the hell knows?
Okay.
Also making lunch because we're
Multitasking.
we had some
parents.
early risers, me, and late risers. Me and Rhodey were up early. And then these two slept late, so we had a late breakfast.
Yeah.
So now, instead of ordering a pizza, we are making our own bagel bites because I had a box of them in the freezer.
Perfect. Okay, so we will check back in when we're a little farther on in the bread, and we will again check back in after our meatballs are then cooked for the night. But honestly, like, because we had all of this stuff already, we didn't spend anything on these 2 meals that we're going to get out of this. But when you really think about it, it's like we've probably been under $10, and that's with the eggs, to make this entire 2 meals, which is huge for a family of 3. So,
Any more?
yep. Alright, here we are on the other side of the kitchen. This is where the baking's gonna happen.
Our small kitchen, yes.
This is the bakery
But you know
versus
what?
the carnicera. Is that what it is?
When I
Kitchen.
watch
La
videos
Cocina.
on YouTube, I'm actually put off by all of the people who have like this super huge, brand new, updated kitchens, because I'm like, you actually don't know how to budget in my budget. You can budget in your budget. We do not have the same
We
budget.
don't have that budget.
Right? So for me, it is off-putting when I see like a huge brand new home, because I'm like, we don't have the same budget, and that's fine. Like, you have the house that you have. That's wonderful. I love it. Great. It looks great. But we are on separate pages.
This is the house that we have.
So if you guys are broke, sorry, I'm just gonna try and pass over this water so I can get this cleaned up. If you guys are broke like us, this is our tiny kitchen. We don't have seating in here.
No.
We have a bar table behind our couch. That is our table, and we just got that a year ago? 2
Yeah.
years ago?
Yeah.
We used to just eat on tray tables in the living room,
Yep.
because that's what you do when you don't have the space. We live in an older part of Ogden, in a development area that all these homes were built in the 20s and 30s. And so while obviously there has been updates,
Our house actually turned 100 this last year because it was built in 22.
yeah, can you hit the disposal? Sorry for the noise. Obviously our house has been updated in some respects, but the size of it has not changed since 1922 when it was built. So, here we are in our tiny, budget-friendly-ish kitchen. And we are just cleaning up. The meatloaf is in the freezer. We have meatballs prepped in the fridge to go for dinner. And we have, what is that called? The yeast has been activated. I don't
Yep.
know.
Here's our activated yeast.
Whatever y'all
Yeah.
bakers say
looks-
it is. I don't know.
It looks pretty disgusting.
Yeah, I mixed together the flour and the salt. He's getting it
Okay.
ready.
Flour and salt, and now I'm going
Oh,
to.
will you check that? Actually, never mind. You don't want him to cook on them. I'm sure you guys have this debate in your house, right? With your household members, whoever you live with. Some people see these. He would be fine with. Okay. These are
This
not.
was supposed to be the bread baking show, but now it's just the crap on Drew show.
No, we'll get back to the bread baking show in a minute. He doesn't let the pizza, bagel bites, pizza rolls, you have to let them brown on top, folks. That's how you do it. These are not quite ready. TJ, who's right, me or Dad?
I'm staying out of this.
He just wants pizza. He doesn't care.
Alright, so I'm.
staying out of this because either I get punished from him because he has my allowance, or I get punished from my mother and quote unquote get sent to Amish country.
Right.
Alright, so I'm gonna slowly add in this activated yeast and just mix it in with my dry ingredients.
Which are flour and salt.
Flour and
This is
salt.
a recipe. Okay.
This is a recipe.
A recipe that I found on Pinterest. That was basically just a quick, basic ingredient French bread recipe, which is kind of all we're going for. We're not fancy. We have gotten fancy with bread though, as I'm sure a lot of you did during the pandemic, which is still ongoing. But
Dad, where's our bread? Where's our most recent you making bread?
This is the most recent me making bread.
But we did, well, I say we, he made a lot of different types of bread during the pandemic.
Some better than others.
Some did turn out better than others.
Yeah.
And so There have actually been several times when we have not had money for bread, but we wanted bread, right? It was a couple days or a week before payday, but we wanted sandwiches that day or cheese bread or whatever. Grilled cheese, whatever. So he makes us bread. We do buy bread still, because for a while the ingredients to make bread were just hard to find. You couldn't find baking stuff, you know. So we do still buy bread just for convenience, but he also makes bread.
Yep, and everybody kind of went that way, but all of a sudden I found myself being the homemaker versus being out in the working world, and I kind of utilized that time to figure out new things and bond with people, honestly, over cooking, and we shared sourdough recipes and starters, and it became like a way to see people, to be like, oh, you want some starter? I've got starter. Hey, come and grab it at my house. Or, hey, I made bread with the starter you gave me. Here's a loaf of it for yourself. But,
and it was just nice too, because it's like during the quarantine lockdown, whatever you want to call it, period, which, man, I wish I could go back to that a little bit. It was hard to feel like everyone was out of, your routine. Everything was topsy-turvy. So it was nice to have that, that activity, that
right.
structure to do.
Right. Something that depended on me, like the yeast. It's a living thing,
It is, yep. I know. It foamed like crazy and stunk.
It's foamy and stinky, but it's alive.
We're almost there.
Okay, so I have everything kind of mixed up. I'm gonna add the rest of the between 2 and 5 cups, depending on how much we need to kind of.
Do I need to go get another bag?
Loosen this all up, but I'm just gonna slowly knead it all in until it's done by hand. And then I'll cover it in some olive oil, and we're gonna sit and let it rise. So that's kind of the bread situation. I would say the best bread that we've had so far was cheddar.
Yeah.
A cheddar loaf that we made.
I found a cheddar jalapeno recipe in the bread machine on Pinterest, and we don't like jalapenos, it's too spicy for us. But I was like, the rest of this sounds really good, and we made it in the bread machine, and it was perfect. Then the next time we tried to make it, it didn't turn out the same way. That's why I hate baking.
Not so good.
You don't get like the same results with the same everything. The same input is not the same output. It's so frustrating. We literally did the exact same recipe in the bread machine, and we actually, so when we first got together, we first moved in together, we had a bread machine. I don't know if it's something I brought or something you already had, or like your mom was getting rid of her old one, something. But we never used it. So when we moved, we got rid of it, right? Get rid of the stuff you don't use. Well, then we found ourselves, in this pandemic, we wanted, not just because, hey, we're home or you were home more. It was also like a preparedness thing because, with supply shortages and store shortages, that's even true today. Obviously, that's why grocery prices are insane. And you just never know, and it's never a bad idea to become a little more self-sufficient, right?
Well, on top of the pandemic and everything just kind of going the way it has for everyone, in the midst of it all, we ended up having a house flood. And
that's right.
We lost our entire food storage.
Yep. We had to start
We
from
had
scratch.
a storage of food in the basement, and
box
was all
destroyed.
Just completely destroyed. And I have a very distinct memory of being down in the basement and not being able to work, and we're barely making it by as is, and now I'm looking at this destroyed food storage and being like, what am I going to feed my family?
Well, and we weren't food bank hurting quite yet, but it's scary because that is a sense of security.
Yeah, our security was down.
Yeah.
So it was like Lindsay said, we've taken the time over the last couple of years. We've rebuilt up our food storage stock.
Yeah.
But I think that
Well,
event, however, has given us like a little bit more of an understanding of like being a little bit more self.
Yeah. Well, I would say we've really gotten serious about it probably over the last 6 months.
Right.
And I followed this gal on YouTube, and she was saying, like, you know, because we were like, we don't have the money to start a food storage, so why bother? Like, we don't have, you know, everyone has this, like, fruit room or cellar down in their basement full of all of these emergency food meals and, you know, huge cans of stuff that'll last you 20 years. And we were like, well, that's not us, so oh well. But, you know, it really doesn't have to be that way. And this lady that I followed on YouTube was talking about how you can start your own just-in-case pantry at the Dollar Tree. And so that kind of got us thinking, like, okay, well, let's start it as a just-in-case pantry, and then as we can add to it, and that's kind of what we've done. And now we try to do rotations, so it's, there are some things that are there just in case. Like, he's the only one who likes tuna fish. I don't really like it. If it was an emergency, I would eat it. TJ would have to go hungry. He hates tuna fish. But like canned chicken, we don't really eat canned chicken. There are some things.
Milk.
Yeah, shelf-stable milk. This is the first time we've used any of the beans that we had, the dried beans we had in our food storage. But, you know, we do have it built up for a little, you know, if we got dire and we were like, well, we can't go to the grocery store for weeks, we could feed ourselves.
Right.
And I think that's it has taken us time, but if you don't have a food storage, I think it's smart to start with your just-in-case pantry. We started with, let's see, what did we get? Flour, sugar, yeast.
Anything really that you can find on sale. You have a really, really decent sale on something like flour, pick up 2 or 3 bags, and 2 of them will stay downstairs.
Yeah. And we also did rice, bagged rice.
Yep.
So you basically take out the convenience items, because the convenience items are going to cost you more money. So instead of canned beans, we got dried beans, because the bag of dried beans was way cheaper. Same with the, you know, don't get minute rice, get the bags of rice.
Right.
Same with oats, don't get quick oats, get, you know, rolled oats or whatever. It's also, we had dollar store oil, like vegetable oil. We had some peanut butter, you know. Yeah. It's just like little things. Get yourself a couple of cans of soup that you like. Next time you're at the Dollar Tree, grab a 6-pack of Top Ramen to put in there. And, you know, you really can go a long way if you have to with these small things. So that's kind of what we're showing on this series. I don't know if it'll be a series, whatever you want to do with it. Yeah.
Hey, 2 episodes is already a series.
Yes. It is easier than you think to become more self-sufficient, and obviously we are not mom and pa out on the farm, but I think that starting where we're starting, you know, a good supply, a food supply that could get us by for a couple weeks if it had to. I do want to get a camping stove, like a little burner that runs off the little cans of propane, you know, just in case, so that we do have the ability to still, if, you know, God forbid, a horrible disaster happened, like just happened and happened again in Turkey. They had another earthquake. I don't know if you saw that. They had another, like, 6.4.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're not able to use our stove or microwave or whatever, that we still have a way to heat up any food that we, you know, are able to get.
And think about that through to, like, in your what did you call it? Your just-in-case pantry?
Yeah, just in case.
Ready to eat.
Yeah.
Ready to eat.
Yep.
Light, packable.
Yeah. Also, something that we have been talking about, because
it's hard.
There's a thing down in Ogden called the Lieber Fridge, which is a couple of refrigerators and pantries out behind, what is that, Lee's Donuts? Used to be Lee's
Used to
Donuts.
be. I don't know.
And it's like, it's open for the public. You know, you bring something for people to take who are in need. And we have been talking about, like, if you ever find yourself in an emergency situation, you might not have a can opener.
Right.
So when you are looking for your just in case pantry or whatever, pop top cans
Yep.
are the best way to go. So that's also another thing to think about. So
And speaking on that, too, one thing that we've been doing is you've got to be careful with your expiration dates and whatnot. Like, a lot of them are years, good to go for however long. But we also keep a close eye on our just in case shelf. And if something hasn't been used and it's coming close to its expiration date, we've taken it down to the Weber County fridge and dropped it off there because somebody else can use it immediately and we might not get to it by the time it expires.
And just so you know, they also, if you ever are interested in donating to the Weaver Fridge, they also accept non-food items like tampons, dog food, toothpaste, anything that you...
Toiletries. Yeah,
toiletries, and things like that. Anything that anyone could use, that they might be hurting and can't afford or whatever. But they also have a refrigerator with a freezer, and they do accept homemade stuff. It just has to be clearly marked with what it is and the date because, they want to be aware of people's food allergies.
Yeah.
What are you looking at me for?
Okay.
What can I help you with?
I was looking at you because you were talking.
Oh.
I got my dough all beat down. I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna need this just a little bit longer, and then I'm gonna put some olive oil on top of it, and we're gonna set and let it rise. And then we'll check back in when it's time to do some baking of this stuff later. But it's super gross and sticky, and I'm gonna get messy, so I'm gonna have to push the button before I start. Do you have anything left to say? On the bread episode?
Bread is delicious. We love carbs in this house.
It's pretty delicious. That's a good one to go.
Look at that steam. Guess what? We made this with our own hands.
Brushed. And this. A little bit of minced garlic inside room temperature butter. I'm sorry that you can't come over.
It smells amazing. And here's the thing. Yes, this is a process. Yes, it takes time. Yes, your kitchen is going to get messy. But honestly, it is nice to be like, oh my gosh, I made that. And hey, I already paid for the ingredients to make this, so I'm not paying twice to buy a frozen thing of garlic bread from the grocery store.
Right. And also, with that amount of work that we did today. That's really work. This is 2 meals.
Yeah, we're going to eat one of them tonight, and we're going to prepare the other one, let it cool, and then freeze it. And then when we have one of our other freezer meals that we made, we are going to have really great garlic bread that all we have to do is throw in the oven and warm up.
Meatballs are also done. We're just waiting on the spaghetti to boil and the corn to heat up, and then a day's worth of cooking is going to turn into a pretty awesome meal. Plus, I think in the last 2 days we've made an entire week's worth of meals.
Mm-hmm.
I want to eat that bread. Done. Now for the taste. Couple of these are new recipes. Never tried the bread, never tried the meatballs this exact way, so... What are you trying first, meatball?
Here, give me a second to set up. There.
Okay. TJ's rolling with us too?
Wait, have you given them why you don't like ground beef but you
Yeah,
like meatballs?
yeah, we talked about it. What do you think?
Pretty good.
It is different with the taco seasoning, but it's not bad. It's good.
This is not what you expect a meatball to taste like, but then
No.
it's like,
Wow.
that's a taco. That's delicious.
How come I only got 2.5 meatballs?
There's more in the pan. There's always better when he's asking for seconds and his plate's not even started. So
That means you hit a home run.
here we go with our bread. Can you see that?
Oh,
Look
man.
at that beautifulness.
Wow. It looks like it has cheese inside.
It's so squishy. Beautiful.
It's homemade. Hey, has anyone tried it yet?
Ooh, let me.
Bread time?
All right.
I like it.
And that butter is killer.
Dad, do you hate it?
And
It looks like you're crying tears of pain.
That's the butter seeping off of my floor. And I'm happy here.
this is literally like the bread you pay $5 for in the Smith's Bakery. The artisan bread or whatever.
So
And-
warm and fluffy
And not stale.
and made with these hands.
And honestly,
Did you wash them?
it was flour
Yes.
for 2 loaves of bread. What?
With
5 cups
soap.
of flour. 2.5 teaspoons of sugar, 2.5 teaspoons of salt, a package of yeast
And water.
and water, and some olive oil.
And a secret ingredient.
And we had been stocking up on flour because we had been baking bread. We already talked about this. So this bread didn't cost us anything extra. We already had these ingredients in our house. And the butter.
This is a win. This is such a win. Yeah? Yeah? Alright. Episode 3.
2.
No,
Come
2's
on.
in the books. 3 will be...
I don't know.
What will we think of
tacos
next?
in a bag.
Gross. There you go. We got yum.